everyone, welcome back to my channel Ticktastic. I'm Wilhelmina and today we've got a very exciting video. So something that you guys don't currently know is that I am now on a very exciting trip. Last year, in fact I think it was last summer, my mum was scrolling through Facebook, as she does, and she came across an advertisement for this kind of online course, and it was run by the charity NJCTS, which is New Jersey Center for Tourette Syndrome, and it was supposed to be a 2-day course for teenagers to learn how to advocate for themselves when it comes to Tourette's. And my mum was like, hey, why don't you give this a go? You know, it's online, it's on Zoom, so you can leave whenever you want and give it a go. That's what I did. I logged on and I loved it. Like the approach they had and the way they taught about advocating was so intriguing and so amazing. And even though the time difference was 5 hours, and for me it was until 2 a.m. for both nights, I stayed up because I didn't want to miss it. So obviously you've been to the academy a lot before, obviously it would have changed over time, but like generally what do you think is the best thing that the academy provides, or like the best parts?
What I love about the academy is the experience of direct mentorship between the coaches and participants.
Yeah. All
of the coaches have Tourette's, and I think that's really important. We also do small groups called team talks where there are about 2 coaches and 4 or 5 participants per team, and we get to talk openly and honestly about things in our lives, things that you can't talk about with your parents or they just won't understand. We talk really honestly about medications, about what it's really like, about our comorbidities, and then also the participants get an opportunity to ask all kinds of questions, whatever we want to talk about. And I would say those bonds and that direct mentorship is something I haven't experienced at any other Tourette program I've been to.
Yeah, and the reason it was online that year was because of COVID. And usually they do a 4-day in-person course at a university in New Jersey. And this year they're going back to doing that as they normally would. And I got thinking, wouldn't it be so good if we could have a system of teaching young kids in the UK how to advocate for themselves about Tourette syndrome? Because the way that NJCTS do it is they teach them how to then go into local schools, local communities, even local hospitals and doctor centres, so that every community becomes more aware of it. So why do you think going and doing presentations and talking to people and advocating for Tourette's is important?
Yeah, there's a lot of representations in the media of Tourette, and it's obviously not always accurate or not nearly a full picture. And I think when somebody sees someone with Tourette talk about it, it's much, much more impactful, and they have a long-lasting memory. And there just aren't enough medical professionals who are familiar with Tourette, and there aren't enough people who have a support system who have Tourette's. So I think it's really important so that other people don't feel the way that I felt when I was a teenager, when I was starting out.
That's something that over with NJCTS they're doing so well, and I really thought the UK was kind of missing, and I was like, how can I get there? How can I do this? It's quite a big goal to try and achieve. So I, set my sights quite low because I didn't want to get my hopes up, because obviously it's a challenge. The UK and the US are very far apart, and it not only does it take a long way to get there, it is also expensive. I was very lucky that a charity in Cornwall set up by Neil and Amanda Tregarthen, they help young people in Cornwall with funding for anything that they need to improve their life or their family situation, or anything to get them forward on their next steps. And they'd reached out in the past and offered their support for any upcoming projects that I needed help with. And at that time I didn't really have anything, so I said, thank you, that's very kind, but for the minute I'm kind of all good. But when it came to thinking about going to this NJCTS course, I decided it's a long shot, but why not ask? So I emailed them, and they were so kind and agreed to help provide the funding for me to go all the way from the UK to New Jersey to attend this incredible course. So you might not know it from my background, but I am currently in a hotel room in New Jersey, which is very exciting, and the course starts tomorrow, the Tim Howard Leadership Academy. I can't tell you guys how excited I am. Now, what I was planning to do was, on the way over, the traveling experience on the way over, I was planning to do, you know, a little bit of filming here and there, explain what I was doing kind of as I went on the journey. Now, the journey wasn't quite as straightforward as I was hoping. It wasn't awful, don't get me wrong. It was fine, we've made it, but it wasn't the easiest. And I'm not the best traveller. My anxiety goes through the roof quite often, especially around like airports and airport security and like being on an aeroplane. You know, the anxiety goes up, my tics sometimes increase, which doesn't help, and it's not the easiest process for me anyway. And I'd never flown from one of the London big airports before. I'd only flown from slightly smaller ones, so that was already kind of a new experience, because obviously bigger, more people, and the Heathrow airport staff were really lovely. And because I go through lots of the special assistant aisles, because it was really hard for me to stay in a hugely long queue that's really packed and takes ages, because one, standing up for really long periods of time doesn't work with my tics often, and also being around so many people in such a small clump, anxiety goes up, tics goes up, is not the one. And it was my first ever long haul flight, so again, a bit nerve-wracking. So along with having the kind of speedier queues, the special assistant queues that we went through in the airport, they also let us board first, before speedy boarding and before normal boarding, because that way all the special assistants get called first, and then we go in, and that means that I got into the aeroplane. It wasn't packed full already, there wasn't quickly put your bags up in the overhead lockers, like it wasn't a rush. I could get to my seat, I had plenty of time to sort myself out and like get used to my surroundings, whereas sometimes you stand in a queue forever and then you get rushed onto the plane and everyone's putting their bags everywhere, you get in a fluster, everyone's sitting in the wrong places, and then you're like taking off and it's all kind of happened at once, and that it's just an added factor that isn't useful, or for me anyway. I know that it definitely doesn't help with tics or anxiety, so that was something that also really helped today, knowing that once we got to the gate we boarded straight away, and then I was in my place, there was no rush, so that was really useful. And because we were obviously flying to America, after looking online and doing some research, sunflower lanyards aren't really a thing over here in the US. There's less hidden disability work kind of that's happened, it's more, you know, wheelchair access, go this way. But we contacted the airline prior to flying. My dad called them and they put me on the list for priority boarding. It meant that then when we arrived at the airport and got off the plane and went to the last passport check, rather than having to be in the hugely long queues, in fact we started in a hugely long queue because we weren't really sure where to go, because there wasn't like an indicated place for special assistant that was quite obvious, but there was a lady who had obviously seen my name on the list, and she came and found us. That was really nice. Don't mind about aeroplanes, I'm not scared of flying, it's nothing to do with that. It's all just that my disability, having Tourette's, it's just like a huge factor in all the situations that the airport brings. So that's why I think it's really important to make the best of like a slightly harder situation. So I don't know, that's what I found useful. So on day one was arrival in the morning, and we all got there, we all got given our key cards and that kind of thing. We got to meet everyone, we got taken up to our dorms to drop our stuff off, and then we sat down and did some group icebreaker activities as everyone slowly started to come and join. And the first activity we did on the first day was a kind of a virtual welcome to the academy from Tim Howard, and we got to do a Q&A with him, which was really nice. There you can see a couple of photos, one of which is a group photo with him on the screen, which was quite fun. Later that day in recreation, I learnt how to play Yahtzee, and somehow managed to win, even though I still didn't really know how to play. And also the word Yahtzee became a tick for me, which was quite funny, so we had to stop saying it. And there I am playing and with some of the coaches and participants. Day 2 started with some group Q&As with 3 specialist doctors. The first was Dr. Mike Rubenstein, a neurologist specialising in Tourette syndrome. The second, Dr. Jeremy Lichman, who has Tourette's himself and is a psychologist, the therapy CBIT for patients who have Tourette syndrome, which was really cool to meet him. And then Dr. Zambrano, psychologist who specialises in working with patients with Tourette syndrome and is an expert in providing CBT and ERP therapy for OCD. So these 3 doctors, it was really amazing to be able to meet them in small groups and chat to them and kind of ask them any questions, because after all, they are the experts. Shortly after this, we also did a group photo in our academy t-shirts. Later that day, we did an art workshop where we all got to paint our own shoes with whatever we liked. And I painted mine with sunflowers. I thought this was quite nice because, for a start, sunflowers are my favourite flower, but more to the point, they also represent hidden disability, so I thought that it fitted quite well and I had a lot of fun doing it. Later that evening on day 2, Coach Sarah did a music workshop for us and taught us how she writes her song lyrics as she plays the harp and sings. And that was actually one of the first times where the whole room with all of us with Tourette's in was actually quiet.
Are you hoping for heaven?
Because we were so focused and listening to the music, and that I found really interesting.
I currently make music about like electro dream pop music about being a fairy and fantasy, and that's my love. But I also do a lot of session work for other people, so if someone needs harp or piano or trombone or some other thing, I'll help them. I'll also do a decent amount of producing in dealing with digital song production and synthesizers and that kind of thing. I'm 28 years old. This is my 6th time being a coach at the academy, so I started either 2016 or 2017, I can't remember. But I've also done with NJCTS some talks at different universities where I'm from in Philadelphia to introduce psychology students to what Tourette's is, and a variety of other engagements, like played concerts for NJCTS, and then most recently I'm producing a podcast for them about the adult experience of Tourette, and it's called The Uptick.
And on day 3, we had the amazing experience of visiting the on-campus repository lab that the NJCTS originally set up, which actually conducts research into Tourette syndrome and the genetics behind it. They're also trying to develop a medication specifically for Tourette's, as currently there aren't any. And this was a really cool experience, as I'm pretty sure it's the only genetic lab that's doing research into Tourette syndrome, so it was really cool to actually be there and see what goes on.
They can be brought back to life and be dead.
And then, sadly, the 4th day was kind of goodbyes, which was obviously quite sad as it was coming to an end. And they actually gave everyone certificates, so we all went up to Melissa, the academy director. You can see me in the photos there, giving her a hug and getting my certificate. And then we had our last group photo, and that was the end of the academy. Obviously, within that, there was lots more that we did, but if I told you everything that we did, we'd be here for days. And also I wanted to show you some fun photos, and those activities kind of showed them. So yeah.
So my name's Kyle Swords. I'm 17. I'm going to be a senior in high school. I go to Morris Catholic High School. I've worked with NJCTS to do speeches at schools and hospitals for about 5-6 years now.
So seasoned pro.
Seasoned pro. I like to
Is this your first academy or not?
So the past 2 years I was accepted to the academy, but because they were virtual, I wasn't able to attend.
Yeah, obviously. but I think that like the team talks, especially in the small groups, gave us like a real opportunity to ask questions like, do you drive? How do you drive? Or don't you drive? Like something that, because the rest of my family doesn't have Tourette's.
It's a popular topic. We always talk about driving.
Yeah,
as a teenager, it's kind of like you're gaining your independence, and yet your tics are at your worst. So you're like, how am I going to cope with both things at the same time?
Yeah, and it's something that usually you can't ask people because they're like, oh, I drive, it's a normal thing. I don't have tics. And even talking about like applying for jobs, do you disclose your Tourette straight away? How do you tell your boss? That kind of thing. I think it's all really vital information that's like just part of a conversation that we can just chat about, and it's so like open, and I really love that. And that's, I think, one of my favourite things that I've kind of experienced in the academy, along with like talking to everyone and meeting everyone, especially.
Being able to tick openly, triggering our tics, each other's tics sort of on purpose in a way. I think, it gets to be a lot and sometimes too much, but I also think that it's important to have the experience of having your tics be at their strongest. I don't want to say worst because I don't want to put it in a negative light, but having your tics be at their strongest so that you can have the experience of picking yourself back up and continuing on. And knowing that that's possible and it's okay. Yeah,
it's definitely a unique experience for lots of people. Like I haven't been in a room with that many people with Tourette's. Like all the coaches, all the participants. Like at first it's like, wow, this is a lot, but you know, you get used to it. And you know, everyone's tics increases, but everyone, you know, you take breaks, you go have some space. Like it's very much okay to do that as well. But I think that it's just, I love that people are on different like paths. Some people have only just been diagnosed. Some people have been advocating for years. Some people aren't comfortable with even telling their friends yet, and everyone is still like together and chatting about tics and life and how the two go together. So I mean, is there anything else that you want to add that you haven't?
I felt extremely isolated and not having people to talk to about it. Even though my older brother has a TS, we sort of don't really talk about it in our family, or we didn't back then. And so I think this experience is equally as valuable for me as an adult and as a coach coming in and seeing, you know, I go back to my normal life and I feel yet again isolated, and I'll start suppressing more, or my conversations with my friends will be the same. They'll respond to my tics as though I'm talking to them and I'm not. And I think every year coming to the academy, it's like such a confidence boost. And when I go home, I feel so rejuvenated. I feel so much more comfortable with myself because I've my whole life struggled with a lot of shame, and especially over quarantine, and having this only be virtual for the past 2 years, I feel like I sort of went backwards a little bit. And now I feel much more prepared to go back to my normal life and to just let it out more and not feel quite so bad and have that same self-talk like in my head every time I tick, or less often now than I used to. But I'll think, oh, you're so annoying, oh, you're doing this for attention, no one wants to hear it, you're faking it. And here you don't have to do that.
I'm Acevedo, I'm 16, and this is around my 4th year with NJCTS, and I do numerous grand rounds and different types of social activities for NJCTS.
Because these guys probably won't know, what's a grand round? Like I didn't to start with, so do you guys want to explain that?
Sure. A grand round is basically when you go with a medical professional, maybe a doctor, and maybe any like medical professional basically, and you go with them and you teach other people that work there, and maybe people that just want to know more. Sometimes they could even be teachers too. They want to know more about Tourette's, basically. That's what a grand round is. You teach them how it feels to have Tourette's and what you've been through from a personal experience.
And the only other thing which I kind of wanted to ask you about is because I know you're a musician. I'm a musician. And I just wanted to ask, like, how do you find that when you play, like, your tics lessen, or like why you enjoy music.
Yeah, I love music. I think I just naturally am inclined for it. It is something that is a language I understand.
Yeah.
And when I talk or I think about music or I do music, my tics nearly disappear. One particular example, I played a Nashville style songwriters circle. So basically 4 or 5 songwriters get up on stage and we take turns playing one song at a time for the audience. And then at the end we sort of all do a song together. And when I'm playing my songs, I'm not ticking at all. But then there's a period where I have to sit there on stage and watch other people, and I will tick during that.
So you said you've done some presentations. Why do you think that doing those are important?
Well, I think so I do 2 types of presentations mainly. One's at hospitals and one's at schools.
Yeah.
I think the ones at hospitals are really important because while doctors may have all the information they need on what Tourette syndrome is, they know the sciences, the causes.
Bubbles.
It's hard for them to really get the personal experience, and I feel like that human connection is something that I can give, and that's really important for the doctors to really be able to connect the disorder to the person.
Yeah, a real life example.
And for the schools, I think it's just useful because a lot of bullying is a big problem anywhere in the world, and I think when the kids are able to see me up on stage speaking gently on behalf of another kid who goes to the school, the awareness generally helps out the kids because there's less questions being asked on what does this kid have, why are they doing this. It gets the information out there, it clears the fog. Everyone goes, oh, they have Tourette syndrome, this is why they do that. And I think the awareness is just really important.
Yeah.
I think the academy teaching people that they have to do what they like and what they're passionate about and what they're interested in, and that'll help them, is the whole point. Is you're not going to, the more uncomfortable you are with yourself and your environment, the more you're going to tick in a way that makes you uncomfortable. So the more you live your life in a way that is for you, then the less you're going to be held back by everything, even just your thoughts.
Yeah, totally agree.
My name's Kyla. I'm a participant.
How old are you?
I'm 18 years old.
Okay, so off to college.
Yes, I'm going to be an incoming freshman.
Cool. So is this your first time here doing anything with NJCTS, or have you done it before?
I have done multiple things with NJCTS. This would be my 4th year doing the academy.
Okay, yeah.
I've presented on behalf of NJCTS for a hospital and police departments. So.
My name is Colin. I'm 15 years old, going into my sophomore year. I do a lot of grand rounds presentations too.
Yeah.
I do a lot of advocacy for the NJCTS.
Cool. So Colin, why do you think that doing presentations like that are important?
There's so many reasons why it's important. It's kind of hard to
definitely
pinpoint one down,
Bubbles.
I really want to educate people without Tourette's on people with Tourette's, like me and you. I think that education is really important because people really need to. They need to know how to treat us, and that we're not trying to be irritating or annoying. That we're just trying to live our lives, and I think that that's a very important thing for people to know. And that's my main message that I try to get across when I do my presentations.
I think it's important for police departments and hospitals to know what it is, because not many hospitals do.
Yeah.
And if you're ever pulled over by a police officer,
Bubbles.
they know beforehand,
Yeah.
oh, this person may have Tourette or a disability,
Yeah.
and so they don't just assume it's like, oh, this person's on something
Yeah.
or something like that. So
Cool. What has been like your favourite part about it, and what do you think is like the most important part?
Well, my favorite part about the academy is probably the social time. A lot of the events were really, really well put together, but I think the thing that was most put together was the amount of social time and activities that were offered to us. And I think I wouldn't have been able to meet everyone in this room without that social time, and I wouldn't have learned everyone's stories and met everyone on a personal level, and I think that was really great.
What about you?
It's hard to pick a favorite part. But
Yeah.
I
love it all.
Yeah, I'll have to agree. I love meeting everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody similar to me. I've made so many friends here. I don't
Yeah.
think I've ever made so many friends in the span of 4 days in my entire life.
Yeah, it feels like you know everyone. Like,
Yeah.
it just feels like we've known each other 3 days, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like that.
It's crazy.
I know that I find it really cool that it's not only participants that have Tourette's. Like, we have a nurse. The nurse has Tourette's, and I think how better can you understand someone with tics when you have that experience yourself, and all the coaches, and I think that's really awesome.
My favorite thing personally is meeting other people with Tourette syndrome. My favorite, or the most important part, I feel, is, as well as meeting different other people with it, would definitely be learning more about it, learning why I do, why I tic, why I think these different things, why I may make this sound or do different things that we can't control. So.
Well, I think some of the education has been really good. I really like going to the research lab at Rutgers, especially because I'm looking at sort of like possibly doing my own research on Tourette syndrome. I definitely think that the most important part was just the connections you're able to make with your friends and with the other people here, because really seeing others with Tourette syndrome and being able to connect to them and knowing that you're all going through the same thing is something that you can't really create anywhere else. That human connection
it is a unique experience.
Really important.
Yeah.
So I would say by far that is the most important thing here.
Cool. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'd like to say just don't be afraid to be yourself, really.
Yeah.
You know, even if you do have Tourette syndrome, if you have something else, it doesn't matter. Just you should be able to find people who really appreciate you no matter what you have. So just make sure you guys find the right people in your life and aren't scared to be your real self.
So I was just sat here telling my parents a story from the academy, and they were like, why don't you film it? Because I just told them and they found it hilarious. So basically we were just having our dinner here in, what's it called? Bryan Park. And okay, so basically we were going over to the dining hall for lunch, and they decided to do like a brunch type lunch. So it was like pancakes, scrambled eggs, and breakfast potato, that kind of thing. And one of the coaches, Sam, one of his main vocal tics is fish, and then he has lots revolving around the word fish as well. Like, I don't like you, you're mean fish, that kind of thing. And we were just choosing what we wanted, and we both got like scrambled eggs and potato and pancakes. And then they put this big thing, it's like a breaded piece of something. We're not sure what it is, and they put it on his plate, and we look at each other and we start laughing a little bit because he definitely didn't ask for it, until I read the sign, the label for it, and I die with laughter, and Sam has no idea what's going on, and I just point at what was written, and it was fish, and they'd heard one of his tics and given him fish with his pancakes, and we laughed so much, we were like crying. It was so funny. So there you go, there's a little anecdote. Okay, so we made it to Grand Central Station. I think that's what it's called, is it? The one with the famous clock that you can probably see behind me. I mean, it's crazy that a train station, I'm looking at chandeliers right now and I'm stood in a train station. That's kind of crazy. And I was just thinking, I was again talking with my parents, telling them all about the academy, and I thought I'd share this one moment with you guys. So at the start of the academy, we had a Zoom call with Tim Howard, as after all, it is the Tim Howard Leadership Academy. And we got to ask him a bunch of questions and hear a lot about his story. As some of you might know, he is an ex-footballer, he has Tourette's. And the question I asked him was, because now he does some TV presenting for sports shows, I asked him whether his tics ever affected his work when doing TV, or whether he was nervous to start doing it because of his tics. And what he said was that the people that ask you to do the show have asked you for a reason. They've done their homework. They've looked him up, and everyone knows that Tim Howard has Tourette's. Therefore, if he tics in front of the camera, they asked him to be there. So I thought that was really cool, and that was the question that I got to ask him. So I thought I would share it with you guys. Just gonna have a quick boast here, because just walked past a Dunkin' Donut, which there aren't very many in the UK at all, if any. And just saying, I won the scavenger hunt with our team on the academy, and I did get a $5 Dunkin' Donut voucher, so I will be coming back tomorrow. So I'm back in the UK now, and I just wanted to conclude this video by saying how much I, for a start, enjoyed the academy and I had such a great time, but also how much I learned from it, and how much I've learned and can now use, not just in my own life, but to hopefully help improve the UK and the UK's awareness about Tourette syndrome. I learned that I think it's really important what NJCTS do in terms of teaching their young advocates to go into schools or go into different communities and talk about it and raise the awareness, have that like active part of the community. And I think that that's something that I've definitely brought back, and hopefully me and Tourette's Action together can make something in the UK that's similar to help raise the general awareness.